sorry. JFCS is proud to extend the reach of our clinical team through community workshops such as this. We know there's significant need for youth mental health support. We see it in our own counseling program and with our partnership with East Windsor School District. Tonight's presenters are May and Carol. This presentation is a testament to their hard work and dedication, and I have no doubt you'll find it very informative. So May and Carol, you're going to take it away.
Thank you. Let me share my screen. All right. Thanks, everyone. We are excited to be here. I'm Carol Wolkowitz, and I am one of the presenters along with May. As Shirley said, we are excited to be here for a number of reasons. Both May and I are parents. We're both social workers, and we admittedly are both social media users. So this is a topic that's very important to us on several levels. And it gave us a great opportunity to do some research on our own, and we're excited to share with you our findings. So we understand that we've got about 45 minutes with you today. And so what we want to do is talk about a few items specifically. We're going to talk to you about social media usage amongst teens and what are some of the statistics around it. We'll talk a little bit about how it impacts mental health. And then we want to include a conversation about cyberbullying, which it's hard to really talk about social media without including that topic because unfortunately, cyberbullying is prevalent on social media. And then it wouldn't be a good presentation if we didn't end with some tips and techniques for how we as parents can help mitigate those risks that we're going to be talking with you about. So before we get started, though, I would love to get a sense from this audience as to what platforms your teens are using. And you could take yourself off mute, you could shout it out, you could just throw it in the chat. But as I said, I'm just really interested to get a general idea about what type of platforms are currently in use. And feel free to dump some names in the chat. Snapchat, Instagram. Yes, Instagram, absolutely. What else? TikTok, of course. And some of us might even admit that some of us are using some of these platforms, right? Although I'm told by the younger ones in my family that things like Facebook are not for the young kids, it's for the older folks. But there are certainly a number of platforms, Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, that's several of them. When we started doing research, what we found is, believe it or not, we found more than 30 different apps, which is just mind-boggling. And some of them were ones that I had never heard of. For example, did you know there's something called Chat Roulette that randomly assigns users to chat rooms, which has video-enabled chats? Kik is another one, and that's an anonymous messaging app. So unlike Snapchat or Messenger, you don't know who you're talking to. There's another app called Line, which allows not only free phone calls, but free messages and texts, but it allows the user to automatically delete them by setting a timer, kind of like Snapchat, that it just disappears. And then there's another one called Meet Me, which is a dating app that's based upon geography. I mean, I can go on, and I will tell you that I don't really know much about each of these because there's just so many out there. And that's really the point, right? We cannot control social media. There are new platforms being launched almost daily. And our teens are growing up in a digital world. I mean, that's just a fact. So we can either sit here and lament over it, and we can lament over these changes, or what we can do is try to adjust our parenting style. And that's what we are here to talk about, is what can we do knowing that this is a fact that we can change? What can we do and how can we parent differently? So you may be asking yourself, well, what's the big deal? I mean, even I'm on social media, right? What's the big deal? Social media and digital platforms, it's made our lives easier. It's connected us. We've got instant access to people. So what is the big deal? And you'd be right. It has helped us in a lot of ways, but there are a couple of things that we just cannot overlook. And here are some of the risks or some of the dangers with social media, and not to scare anybody, but it's important that we are educated and that we're informed ourselves. First, there can be harmful content on social media. I mean, in the old days, I'm going to date myself, but in the old days, you know, you had some parental controls. You might turn on the TV, and if you didn't like what was on, you just changed the channel, or the same thing with a radio station or a newspaper or a magazine or whatever. But this harmful content, you can't always even control, because they might not recognize that they're going on to TikTok or they're going on to Snapchat and thinking that they're going to see harmful content. But unfortunately, sometimes these apps are filled with violent content, or can be sexually explicit content, or it could just be inappropriate content, inappropriate behavior, and relationships that somebody wouldn't normally seek out on their own. So it's just right there in their face. There's incorrect content. And if you poll your teens, what you might find is that that's where they get their news. Most teenagers, at least the ones that I know, they're not watching the nightly news. They're not reading the New York Times online. What they're doing, if they're involved at all in any kind of news information, is they're getting it from these platforms. And a lot of times the information that's there, especially the news information, is incorrect. Another aspect is that most of these platforms don't have a moderator. So if there is inappropriate behavior, if there's bullying, if there is illegal behavior, there's often nobody there who's witnessing it who could stop it or who could protect us from it. And if there is a moderator, it might be after the fact. So it's too late. They've already seen it and now they've taken it down, but the harm has already been done. There's privacy issues as well. I'm sure that you're all familiar that, you know, on our phones, we've got location services. And sometimes even if we're posting pictures, it's got the location of where we were, and people can track that information and know everything about where you've been, your full name, etc. So although most of these teens are dealing with other teens on social media, you know, we can't overlook the fact that sometimes there could be bad actors, people who are out there for the wrong reasons, maybe predators, and you don't want them getting access to this kind of information. There's information that's not appearing in call logs. So even for those of you who are on this call who are saying, yeah, but I'm pretty on top of this, I monitor, my children know, and I look at their phones and I see the activity that they're doing, that may be the case, but some of these apps, they erase the logs. So even if you were to be monitoring this information and to try to see where they've been, you're not going to be able to see all of the information, all of the phone calls that they made or all the chat rooms that they've been in. Live streaming, that's another big one. Live streaming, all of us who are social media users and our teenagers might be witnessing the broadcasting that somebody else puts out there, or they may be doing the broadcasting themselves. So because it's live, again, there's no censoring, there's no delays. You can't control the content. You don't know what's going to be there. It's kind of like a train wreck, right? You're watching a train wreck and you can't look away. And sometimes this is right there for us. And it might, again, be violent content, or it just might be really hurtful, really harmful content. So that's another one of the risks associated with social media. And then algorithms. And I'm sure if you wanted to do research on this, there's a ton of articles on this, and we're not going to get into these details, but the social media companies, they've built into their platforms different algorithms so that they know what we're looking at. And they will then push information out to us that follows what we've been looking at. But remember, we may have been looking at something not by our own choice, or we may have looked at something that was negative or harmful, but these algorithms are going to continue to feed us that same kind of information. And it's designed in a way to deliver that negative content and to hook us in so that we are getting addicted to this. And then FOMO, fear of missing out. I mean, that happens in every aspect of life. It's not just online, but fear of missing out is a big deal, especially for our youth. They may be seeing their friends who are out doing fun things. Maybe they're at parties, they're at activities, maybe they're just together. But suddenly it's like, I'm watching them and they're doing something that I'm not a part of. And suddenly I feel less than. I feel left out. I feel sad. I feel unincluded. I feel unpopular. Or maybe I'm missing out because I'm watching them get the latest trends. Maybe they have the latest clothing or the latest, technology or what have you. Either way, it's giving them a sense of everybody else is doing something and I don't have the benefit of doing that. So I'm fearing that I'm missing out. And all of this can really lead to excessive comparison. So not only are they comparing themselves to the influencers, which we know are unrealistic expectations, but even to each other. And on social media, let's face it, there's whole apps that are designed to filter and to airbrush and to improve upon images and to make these images look like something different than they are. But we don't know that because all we're seeing is the product of something that's been carefully curated and that's been put out on social media. And we might look at it as adults, we may know this, but our youth don't necessarily know or recognize that what we're comparing ourselves to is not only unrealistic, but in many cases, it's not even real. So that's part of the danger. So we know that human beings are wired for connection, right? We thrive on human connection, but unfortunately, social media has caused a decline in that human connection. And what this chart is showing us is the amount of time that people spend with their friends in person. And it's showing us this statistic from 2003 until 2019, and it's showing all age groups. So from age 15 all the way up through 64. So all of us are included in this. And the line that I want you to pay attention to is the blue line, because the blue line represents the individuals who are between the ages of 15 to 24. And what you'll see is that that line has been decreasing. So, and this is also important to note, is that this is pre-COVID. So we can't even blame it on COVID and isolation that happened there. This all happened up until 2019. And what you'll see here is at the top of the line, in 2003, this population of 15 to 24-year-olds were spending approximately 150 minutes, or about 2.5 hours a day, with their friends. And now we're at 45 minutes. So they went from 2.5 hours a day to 45 minutes a day. So that isolation is real. And now, again, if you ask your teens, I suspect that they may say, again, what's the big deal? You're overreacting. I'm still interacting. I'm just doing it differently. Instead of interacting in person, I'm now interacting online, but I'm still interacting. And yes, that they're right about that. They are still interacting, but because they're interacting online, it comes with other inherent risks. The Surgeon General recently did a study, and the research has shown some pretty startling results. And if you look at the slide, what you'll see here is nearly 1 in 3 adolescent users report using their screens until midnight or later, which means it's impacting and it's interfering probably with sleeping, and it's infiltrating them. They can't get away from it. 1/3 of girls ages 11 to 15 feel addicted to social media. That's pretty scary. 46% of our teens between the ages of 13 and 17 report that it makes them feel worse about their bodies. And that's probably because of that unrealistic expectations and that comparison. And 64% of adolescents report being exposed to hate-based content, either often or sometimes. So clearly, these figures are painting a story, and the story is not a good one. But basically, the takeaways for me is that social media is harming our youth. Yes, it provides an outlet for connectivity. However, it can become addictive. And worse, it's filling them with harmful images and unrealistic expectations, and it's causing low self-esteem. So not only are they exposed to social media influencers, but as I said, they're often finding themselves in competition with their friends. They want to get more likes, they want to get more followers, and it becomes a competition in itself. And unfortunately, social media can also lead to bullying, which Amay is going to talk about in a second.
Thanks, Carol. So we're going to pivot and kind of look at what cyberbullying means. And I want to start by just defining it. That cyberbullying is a form of bullying that occurs online. It's typically through social media, messaging apps, or other digital platforms. And it involves technology to harass, intimidate, or humiliate someone else, often repeatedly with the intention to harm. So when we think about bullying, we're really talking about how is bullying happening in this particular environment. And this can take various forms, such as spreading rumors, sharing embarrassing photos or videos, sending threatening messages, or excluding someone from online groups or activities, which Carol mentioned, this like feeling of social isolation or fear of not being included. So raising awareness about cyberbullying amongst especially adolescents is crucial for so many reasons. It's also persistent, it's permanent, and it's hard to notice. So let's look at that a little more closely. Many adolescents may not realize that they're being cyberbullied, or they may be hesitant to even seek help around it. So raising awareness helps them recognize that when they are being targeted, and they can be encouraged to speak up and actually seek support from a trusted adult or some community member or someone at school. There's an impact on mental health. Cyberbullying can have severe consequences on one's mental health, including increased stress, anxiety, depression, and suicidality or suicidal thoughts. And adolescents need to understand the potential psychological effect of cyberbullying so they can prioritize their mental well-being. Empathy and respect is another theme. So awareness campaigns that can promote empathy For others online, adolescents can learn the importance of treating their peers with kindness and understanding. Again, it's, would you say something to someone in person in the same way you would communicate with them online? And if not, what's the difference and how do you mitigate that, right? How do you bridge that in real life, in real time with people? So let's look at some of these statistics. 16% of students from grades 9 through 12 report being electronically bullied, and this is from 2019. Females experience bullying at twice the rates of males, 20.4 versus 10.9%. LGBTQIA plus students are bullied more than their heterosexual peers, 26 versus 14%. And then most internet harassment comes from other teen youth. So this is happening within that social sphere, and it's playing out through social environments that are online. The other thing that I just want to mention are legal and ethical considerations. So many forms of cyberbullying may also constitute harassment and other legal violations. Adolescents may not be aware of that. Parents may not be aware of the legality around that. So raising awareness helps adolescents understand the legal and ethical implications as well. So we touched on mental health, which is really a key component when we're talking about social media use or cyberbullying. So when we researched this, we discovered and had a hunch about this, right? Knowing that the levels of anxiety and depression and suicidality for adolescents have been increasing steadily, but that adolescents who spend more than 3 hours per day doubled their risk of depression and anxiety. Limiting usage to 30 minutes per day over a 3-week period led to significant improvements in depression severity, more than 35%. And then deactivation of social media platforms for 4 weeks improved well-being by 25 to 40%. So those are some really significant, impactful numbers that we can take in as parents and educators, but also for sure share with our adolescents, our kids, and then start to think about, which we're going to get to next, what are those boundaries? What are those healthy boundaries look like so that there's a realistic relationship with technology that actually can improve or at least support a balanced mental health status. So it's not all bad news, right? Social media can serve as a connection for adolescents and especially for marginalized youth or youth that may be more impacted by bullying when we think about the statistics that we just looked at. We know that social media or technology is a tether for connection. So it's not that it's necessarily bad, it's how our kids, how our adolescents using it. It could also be a space for self-expression and helping youth feel accepted. Maybe people are posting about their interests or things they're feeling passionate about. And how can we encourage that healthy side or maybe creative side as parents so that our children can feel like this is a space that can be a form of expression and individuality. So we're going to look at some tips on what you can do. And the idea is that you can feel prepared, not scared, right? We want to kind of destigmatize, I think, what can often feel overwhelming at times, because we also know this isn't going to just go away. We're living with technology. We are, as parents and adults ourselves, and we're in relationship with our youth living with this too. So setting clear boundaries, establishing what those guidelines for screen time, social media use, and appropriate online behavior really look like, and having those conversations is so important. Educating them about the risks, teaching adolescents about the potential dangers of social media, such as cyberbullying, online predators, and privacy issues. It's kind of a similar conversation to, maybe how risk around accidents. No one thinks that's going to happen until it happens. And so how can we educate and kind of lay that groundwork so they're equipped with the knowledge and skills they need to protect themselves online? Monitoring activity. So keeping an eye on your child's online activity while also respecting their privacy. I remember having a very in-depth conversation with my son about this. Do I know his phone code? Of course I do. But what did that mean in terms of maintaining trust and ideas around privacy and connection? So using parental control tools and setting restrictions around inappropriate content, but also balancing that out with why is it important for us as parents to be monitoring and keeping an eye on their usage as well. Teaching digital etiquette, so emphasizing the importance of respectful communication and behavior online. If you wouldn't say this to somebody in person, why would you feel comfortable saying it to them online? What does it mean to kind of reach through the screen and actually communicate in a way that would be respectful and encourage empathy and kindness in those interactions? Promoting critical thinking, so teaching your child to think about the content they're encountering online. Is it fact, right? Is it something that may be trending on TikTok that has nothing to do with fact or reality? Helping them develop that media literacy to discern between reliable information and misinformation. And I would say promoting that relationship between parent and child so they can come to you to even ask about that. And then encouraging offline activities. When we think about the statistics around increased anxiety and depression of 3 hours a day of online use, what are they doing offline? So promoting activities around sports, hobbies, spending time with family and friends, encouraging your child to cultivate those interests and especially in-person relationships beyond that digital realm.
Sorry, I couldn't find my mute button. There you go. There's even more tips here that we want to share with you. And here's another one, lead by example. So again, I think most of us, it's probably fair to say, are also social media users ourselves. And I know personally, I've had to stop myself sometimes from engaging in what I would call bad behavior. I might see something that somebody says that really irritates me and I want to go back at them. And I have to stop myself because I realize that it's not helpful, it's not useful. And having a disagreement with somebody is not something that needs to be done in a public forum. And it might come across as disrespectful. So are we leading by example? Are we taking that moment to pause and to monitor our own behavior? Because our youth, our children, our students are looking at us and we're setting the example for the type of behavior that they may engage in. Open communication. So I think, again, this is an area where I feel like most parents already engage in open communication. You are probably talking to your children on a regular basis about their in-person activities. If they go to a school dance, you're probably talking about how was it? Who was there? Did you have fun? What happened? You probably already know who their friends are, who they're seeing in person. Chances are, if they participated in a sports event, you are asking them how they did, how they played, who won. You might have even gone there and observed it. But somehow this concept of social media and online behavior, it's like it puts up this barrier that we forget about. But just as you would engage and just as you would communicate with your children about their in-person activities, what the research is showing is that we want to do the same thing for online activities. So you want to foster an environment where you're having these conversations, you're asking them who their friends are. Sometimes they're having a whole new friend group that might have come up through a gaming platform or through some other platform. So encourage that open conversation so that you know who their friends are, you know what they're doing online, you know what their experiences are online, and if they're having difficult experiences or positive experience so that you can maintain those open lines of communication. And of course, we always say, be aware of signs of mental health issues. Anytime you see any kind of change in a pattern of behavior, it might be worth exploring that. And that change in behavior could be change in their sleeping patterns. It could be change in their eating patterns, change in their social group, change in what brings them joy. Maybe they really enjoyed a specific type of activity and suddenly you're finding that they're withdrawing from it. So any significant change in their behavior is going to be something that you want to explore because it might be a sign that there's something else going on. And you want to start the conversation early. So don't just, think, well, if I don't talk about it, I don't want to draw attention to it, it'll go away. No, I would ask the question, talk to your teen, seek professional support if needed. JFCS is a wonderful resource, and we see a lot of teens in a private confidential setting because early diagnosis can save lives. And then, of course, learn, model, and teach good coping skills because you are the role model, you are the example. And we know that there's a lot of stresses in life. everybody who's on the phone, you're probably dealing with your own personal stresses, maybe a financial stress or a parenting stress, it's work stress, I mean, we could just go on and on. Our teens are experiencing stress also, and they're experiencing stress that maybe we're not even aware of because it's happening kind of behind closed doors, just on their phone. So again, we need to be practicing and improving our coping skills, and we need to help them by learning these same things and teaching them this. And then, of course, just be supportive, help them problem solve. When they do come to you with an issue or something that has happened in their online world that's causing them some distress, help them navigate it, help them problem solve, act as a sounding board to give them reassurance and help them find good solutions. We just threw a lot of information out at you, probably 2 or 3 slides worth of all of these wonderful tips. And again, these tips are not things that are earth-shattering. They're basic good parenting skills. But as we said, sometimes it just gets a little bit harder when you're trying to take your regular parenting skills and apply it to an online world. And so what we wanted to do is have more of an open dialogue and talk about some real life scenarios and talk specifically about how would we take all of this information that we just discussed and what have been your best practices and how do we apply it to real life scenarios. So what I'm going to do is ask that we pause the recording so that we can have this conversation. We have 1 or 2 more quick slides to show you. And so this one that we have here is what we call a personal action plan. And really, it's just an opportunity for you to do some self-reflection. I'm not asking for you to share your thoughts out loud, but this is more of a personal reflection and kind of a thought process. So based upon what you've talked about today, based upon what you've come into today's session with some of the concerns that were already on your mind, I'd like you to think about, what's one thing that I can do with my teen over the next week or 2? So let's start small. Is there one specific behavior that you want to incorporate in the next 2 weeks? Maybe it's being mindful of your social media usage. And then what are 2 other things that you can do within the next couple of months? Maybe that's when you want to get a little bit more ambitious and take on maybe some more of the bigger items, like maybe starting to monitor or slow down their usage or things like that. And then just, is there a note you want to make to yourself, a reminder about something that you've learned today that you feel is important that you want to share with your teen, or just to consider to think about as you go forward? And then I just want to also leave you with the fact that you're not alone. You're in this, we're in this together in community, JFCS as your partners and other parents and the school district. So for additional support, or if you feel that you need individual counseling, you could always reach out to us at Jewish Family and Children's Services. Our phone number is here, as well as our website. I would encourage you to take it down. And we would be happy to help you in whatever way we can.